And as we embark on today's programs, allow us to introduce ourselves as your Master of Ceremony, who will be accompanying you throughout this public seminar.
My name is Anissa Haristi.
And I am Raffi Rinaldi. It is a great honor to become your Master of Ceremony for today.
Before we officially begin today's event, we would like to kindly remind all participants to complete the attendance form provided by the committee.
Please make sure to fill in your personal information correctly, especially your name and email address, as the certificate of participation will be sent to the email address registered through the attendance form. The attendance form link has been provided in the Zoom chat, so kindly check the chat and complete the form accordingly.
Therefore, we kindly ask all participants to complete the attendance form and ensure that the information provided is accurate.
Once again, please make sure that you have completed the attendance before we proceed with today's program.
We also have something exciting in store for all of you today.
At the end of the event, 6 participants will have the chance to win a door prize worth total 1.5 million rupiah from our sponsor PT Kanoman Putra Usaha Mandiri.
So, make sure you stay with us until the end of the event and don't miss your chance to win.
Before we begin our event, we will now sing our national anthem Indonesia Raya.
We kindly invite all attendants to please respectfully.
Ladies and gentlemen, Indonesia Raya. Next, we would like to invite the Dean of the Faculty of Medicine, Dr. Iis Inayati Rahmayati, Master of Health, to deliver her speech.
With respect, we welcome Dr. Iis Inayati Rahmayati, Master of Health.
Ya. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera bagi kita semua. Selamat siang dan salam sehat untuk kita semua. Yang terhormat para pembicara pada hari ini ada Bapak Berton Suar Pelita Panjaitan, SKM, MHM, PhD selaku keynote speaker pada hari ini. Kemudian ada Dr. Insinyur Miswar Tumpu, STMT, especially for the speaker, Associate Professor Achilles Surjan. We would like to thank you for your participation today. Kemudian pada hari ini ada Dr. Bagus Cahyono MPH dan juga Ibu Warek 4, Dr. Sylvia Mustikasari, Dr. Magister Medical Education FFRI selaku moderator pada hari ini. Kemudian di sini juga ada para wakil dekan yang hadir menemani saya, para dokter dan tenaga kesehatan, dosen dan mahasiswa, serta seluruh peserta Public Seminar Internasional Jamboree 2026 yang saya banggakan. Selamat datang di acara ini. Acara ini adalah acara dalam rangka rangkaian Seminar Internasional Jamboree 2026 yang setiap tahun kami adakan secara rutin. Apresiasi kami sampaikan kepada seluruh panitia dan penyelenggara yang telah menyelenggarakan acara ini dengan baik, dan kehadiran para narasumber dengan latar belakang yang berbeda-beda ini mudah-mudahan bisa menjadi kekuatan penting dalam membahas isu kebencanaan dari berbagai perspektif. Dan di sini tidak hanya menjadi ruang berbagi tentu saja, tetapi juga menjadi ruang untuk membangun jejaring dan kolaborasi dalam menghadapi bencana yang tidak pernah kita duga akan datang kapan begitu. Hari ini temanya adalah Emergency Response and Disaster. Kenapa ini kita ambil? Seperti yang tadi saya sampaikan, bencana ini dapat terjadi kapan saja dan bisa memberikan dampak yang luas kepada masyarakat. Sehingga kita harus fokus untuk membangun kesiapsiagaan sebelum bencana itu terjadi. Nah, jadi mudah-mudahan hari ini kita bisa mendapatkan bekal yang cukup, baik itu untuk diri kita, untuk keluarga kita, dan juga untuk masyarakat yang ada di sekitar kita. Mudah-mudahan acara ini dapat berjalan dengan lancar. Kami mohon maaf jika masih banyak kekurangan, dan dengan mengucapkan bismillah kita buka ya. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Acara Public Seminar Internasional Jamboree 2026 dengan ini saya nyatakan dibuka. Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam
Warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Dr. Iis Inayati, Master of Health, for your warm and inspiring opening remarks.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we will now proceed to the keynote speech session.
It is our great pleasure to welcome Mr. Berton Suarpalita Panjaitan, Bachelor of Public Health, Master of Health Management, PhD, who will deliver a keynote speech entitled Urban Disaster.
We respectfully invite Mr. Berton Suarpalita Panjaitan, Bachelor of Public Health, Master of Health Management, PhD, to deliver his keynote speech.
Thank you very much for this time, and I think I will be helped by colleagues here to open my presentation. All right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished colleagues, medical professionals, and dear students. It is a pleasure to be here with you today, and I'd like to discuss something that it's becoming increasingly important for us in medicine. What happens to health when disaster occur in our cities? My argument today is quite simple. A disaster is not only a hazard problem. Ultimately, it is a health problem. Therefore, our challenge is not only to respond after the disaster occurs, but to understand the risks early enough so that we can act before the impact becomes a health crisis. Next slide, please. Yes, what is the urban disaster? So, an urban disaster occurs when a hazardous event disrupts the functioning of the city, and it creates consequences for people, infrastructure, and economy and environment, and of course, particularly for health. But what makes the urban disaster particularly challenging is because of the interdependency. Cities are very highly connected one each other. We know cities one each other really connect. So when one system fails, other system can fail within. So a flood, for example, might block the road. The blocked road might prevent the ambulance from moving. So when when ambulance cannot move, access to health care is disrupted, of course. So one hazard can create multiple cascading failures. Next slide, please. What is a public health emergency? We seldom hear about a public health emergency. It is happen when the consequences go beyond individual patients and become enough to affect the health of the population. We might see increased morbidity and mortality. Essential health services might be disrupted. Hospital might become overwhelmed. The patient with chronic diseases may not longer receive their regular treatment. Therefore, a response cannot rely only on clinical medical. We need a population-based public health approach, including, for example, surveillance, early warning, environmental health, communication, even multi-sector coordination. Next slide, please. Now we understand that urban risk is growing. Why is becoming increasingly important? Because there are three things that I need to mention here. Because urbanization, climate change, and changing health profiles. More people now are living in the city. Cities are becoming dense, become denser and dense and dense. So a lot of people around, of course. At the same time, extreme weather are increasingly to increase the risk of the population to disaster. In our population is becoming challenging. People are living longer. Chronic diseases are increasing. So health inequalities remain. So imagine a flood is in a large city. Among those affected, we may have an elderly patient, a need for dialysis patient, a pregnant woman, for example, a children with asthma, or someone who depends on insulin. So for them, a disaster is not just an environment event, but it is a medical event. Slide, please. What makes urban disaster different? Let us take a flood again, an example. Heavy rainfall overwhelms the drainage system. Roads become inaccessible. Mobility is disrupted. Ambulance cannot reach patients. Patients become difficult to access. The patient with chronic disease may miss their treatment. Maternal care cannot be interrupted. Emergency departments can become overloaded. And eventually, what we see is an increase of preventable deaths. So the important question is not simple how severe the flood is, but how resilient is our health systems when the flood occurs. Go to next slide, please. You can see here, healthcare is become a center. This brings us an important principle that health must be at the center of urban resilience. A hospital does not function by itself. It depends on electricity, water, transportation, communication, and medical supplies. And of course, it depends on health workers like doctors, nurses, and non-doctors, non-medical workers as well. Therefore, when one critical system fails, health services might fail within. So building a resilient health system means preparing not only the hospital, but also the system around the hospitals. Next slide, please. Now we're gonna see how the hazard forecast we need to change, become infectful forecast. Now let us move from health problem to the solution. Traditionally, we're going to see that we receive information that extreme rainfall is expected. That information is scientifically important. But for a hospital director, for example, an emergency physician, or a public health officer, the next question is, so what? It's not only extreme rainfall alone, the number, the figure is there, but we need more than further questions. We need to know, what does the rainfall means for the hospitals? This is the very basic question for our hospital. What does the rain means? What does it mean to the patient, to the ambulance access, of course, to medical supplies? We need this information so that our this impact information become action. So instead of saying extreme weather rainfall is expecting, we should be able to say 3 hospitals, 15 clinics, and 50,000 residents are potentially affected. So this is our critical questions. And then next slide, please. Early warning is important, of course, but the most important thing for us is anticipatory action. We need to connect information to action. This right now we know that there is an earthquake. There was an earthquake, big earthquake in NTT, Nusa Tenggara Timur, and we need the information from BMKG become action to the community. So in the hospital as well, we have the same sense when we know already the disaster, the flood become hospitals some affected because of it, but we need also the anticipatory action. What gonna do? For example, our hospital only have 5 doctors right now. We need to deliver to take some doctors from other or for example at home right now, they are residents, to be on duty. So these kind of things we need to understand from the information of the hazard become anticipatory action. We don't wait for disaster to happen, but we can act on the forecast of the action. Next slide, please. When a flood is predicted for 3 days, we can make some good deeds or actions, countermeasure. Imagine that flood is predicted 3 days ahead. What should the health sector do? First, activate the local disaster management authority, BPBD, in this term. The second one, we need to prepare referral hospitals. How many beds do we need? Staff, medicine, and supplies. But the third one also, we need to identify and evacuate vulnerable groups. From the hospital, for example, in NTT, we get some information that the hospital evacuated some patients to outside of the hospital. This is also can be predicted, of course. How about the route for that in this area would be more safer for the patient. So this action may appear simple, but critical difference is when we do them. We do some actions, some logistic preparation, some route become clear. So if we do the actions before the flood occurs, of course, we are anticipating this occur. Next slide, please. Let us see the connection of directly to the public health. Disaster health management does not start when the disaster happens. Before the disaster, we should have warning medicine stocks and evacuation plans. During disaster, we provide search and rescue, emergency treatment, and health services in shelters. Of course, and after disaster also, we work continuous. Never stop after disaster. Public health, medical professional should give services to the public, to the victim of the disaster. Mental health support, we need that. Surveillance become important things that we need to include in our actions. Why? Because health consequences may continue long after the flood weather resides. So, for example, we can see diarrhea, leptospirosis, dengue, respiratory infection. So this become more and more after the disaster occur. We don't want this happen. So we need some data, so surveillance, survey, as well as some medical actions to reduce the potential diseases. Next slide, please. So how do you build our resilience? This is the question. There are four that I need to explain here. Firstly, risk information. Our risk information on health is very important. Sometimes we don't have these kind of things in our hospital, in our public primary health cares, but absolutely we need this one. We health provider can connect themselves to BPBD, for example. Secondly, early warning. So warning must reach the people, the most vulnerable people, of course. So they need actions. So before the disaster occur, for example, today, tsunami potentially occurred, but it's only a small amount in entity. So, but action been done by the population. That is good. That is very good. So there is no consequence of tsunami in entity. And secondly, or thirdly, a resilient health system, safe hospital. How about the buildings? How about the route for evacuation? Prepared health workers. They have been training or not. Medical supplies, surveillance, medical emergency medical teams. So we need to have medical teams in hospitals, in kabupaten, as well as in puskesmas. These kind of things we need to become more resilient to the community. Is not only for health sector, but also goes extend to the community itself. Next, last slide, please. Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, dear participants, urban disasters are becoming more complex right now, but the ultimate goal of disaster management is not simple to protect infrastructure. It is to protect the people and save more lives. For medical community, this means that our rule cannot only begin when the patient arrives at the emergency department. No, our rule begins much earlier. It begins with understanding risk. We need to understanding risk of where we stay, where our hospital stays. So, and then we begin to do some surveillance, of course. Surveillance give our information, the data. We need to make our decision become precise. And then it begins also with preparedness for the health worker, the medical team, emergency medical teams, and also non-medical team. Also, we need those things become prepared. And increasingly, it begins with anticipating the health impact before the disaster occurs. So maybe this is for me, the last that I need to raise is build health resilience before the disaster happens. Because in the end, disaster management is about one thing, protecting human health and saving lives. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bertuan Suar Pelita Panjaitan, Bachelor of Public Health, Master of Health Management, PhD, for your enlightening and thought-provoking presentation. We sincerely appreciate the valuable insight you have shared on urban disaster preparedness and management. Allow us to briefly introduce our distinguished keynote speaker, Mr. Bertuan Suar Pelita Panjaitan.
Mr. Berton Suar Pralita Panjaitan is a senior disaster management professional with more than 30 years of experience in a disaster risk reduction, disaster mitigation, early warning system, capacity building, emergency management, and international cooperation.
He completed his bachelor degree in public health at Universitas Sumatera Utara in 1993, followed by a master degree in health management at the University of New England, Australia in 2001.
He later earned his doctoral degree in hazard and disaster management from the University of Canterbury, New Zealand in 2007.
Throughout his professional career, he has held several strategic positions at the National Disaster Management Agency of Indonesia, or BNPB, including head of the Community Organization Subdirectorate, head of the International Corporate Division, head of the Preventive Subdirectorate, and director of Disaster Mitigation.
He currently serves as the Director of Early Warning at the National Disaster Management Agency of Indonesia, BNPB.
His areas of expertise include disaster risk reduction, multi-hazard early warning system, disaster mitigation and preparedness, emergency management, disaster governance, incident command system, international cooperation, risk mapping and evaluation, as well as climate adaptation and resilience.
So that's it for our first keynote speech. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we have now arrived at the main session of today's event, featuring a series of presentation and interactive discussion session.
To guide us through the remainder of the program, it is our pleasure to introduce our moderator for today's session, Dr. Sylvia Mustikasari, Master of Medical Education, FFRI.
Before we invite our moderator to take over the session, allow us to briefly introduce her by presenting her curriculum vitae.
We will now proceed with the reading of Dr. Sylvia Mustikasari, Master of Medical Education, FFRI, Curriculum Vitae.
Dr. Sylvia Mustikasari, Master of Medical Education FFRI, completed her undergraduate medical education at Universitas Jenderal Ahmad Yani in 2005, followed by her medical professional program at the same university in 2007. She then pursued a master degree in medical education at Universitas Gadjah Mada, which she completed in 2010. She is currently pursuing her doctoral degree at Universitas Gadjah Mada. Dr. Sylvia has extensive experience in medical education research and has contributed to several scientific publications. Her publication includes research on stakeholder perception and confidence regarding the Indonesia Medical Doctor National Competency Examination, formative assessment among undergraduate medical students, programmatic assessment, feedback informative assessment, and the impact of online formative assessment on undergraduate medical students. With her extensive academic background and experience in medical education, it is our great honor to have Dr. Sylvia Mustikasari as moderator of today's public seminar. Ladies and gentlemen, please join us in welcoming Dr. Sylvia Mustikasari, Master of Medical Education, FFRI.
Okay, thank you, Mel and Raffi, for the brief introduction. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Distinguished our keynote speaker, Dr. Berton, honorable invited speakers, and also representative from medical faculty, our dean of vice deans, distinguished guests, and also ladies and gentlemen, and I would like also to greet all the students from medical and health profession education students. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A very good afternoon for all of us. My name is Sylvia, and I'm really honored to serve this event as moderator today. As mentioned before, that this event is eventually the conjunction with the Medical Scientific Symposium and also the 4th International Jamboree of Emergency Response and Disaster Management that held by medical faculty of Universitas Jenderal Ahmad Yani. As we all know that this is also the implementations of our vision and missions in disaster management and also emergency response. So before we begin our discussions, our today discussions more fruitfully, and then have a lot of great speakers coming up, we would like to express our empathy to communities that affected by recent earthquake in eastern Indonesia, as mentioned, as already mentioned by Dr. Berton in NTT. This is 7.7 earthquake recent magnitude, and then triggered a tsunami warning. We tried our best, and we pray for in eastern Indonesia. Okay, so that also becomes our background, which is medical faculty of Universitas Jenderal Ahmad Yani has a vision and missions, and hoping that we are actually impact for national disaster. So today we will invite our first speakers, Dr. Berton. But before that, I would like to invite also Dr. Berton. Have you leave the Zoom meeting, or do you have some quiet time for discussions a bit? Dr. Berton? Yes, I think Dr. Berton has leave the Zoom meeting because he actually right now have to go to the NTT. So our first speaker about anatomy of an urban crisis, defining modern disaster and their health impacts. Dr. Insinyur Miswar Tumpu, STMT. I would like to our committee to share his CV. Okay, thank you. Dr. Miswar completed his bachelor, master, and also doctoral degree in civil engineering at Universitas Hasanuddin and specializing in structural earthquake engineering. His research also about seismic engineering, sustainable infrastructure, environmental system, and resilient urban development. And as we all seen right now in the screen, he has published extensively international journals, and also presented his work at scientific conferences, and also he has a authors the several academic book as well. With his expertise right now in engineering, resilience, and also disaster-related infrastructure, our speaker, Dr. Miswar, will help us to understand the complexity about modern urban disaster and the rich impact on health and also society. So very good afternoon,
Good
Dr.
afternoon,
Nizar.
Dr.
Okay.
Sylvia. Thank you very much.
Okay, so the screen is yours. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And good afternoon, distinguished speakers, respected college, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great pleasure and honor for me to be here today as speaker at the International Jamboree 2026 public seminar organized by the Faculty of Medicine, Universitas Jenderal Ahmad Yani. First of all, I would like to thank the organizing committee for giving me the opportunity to share some talks on a topic that is becoming increasingly important for cities around the world. My name is Dr. Miswar Tumpu. I am from Disaster Management Study Program from Hasanuddin University in Makassar, and today I will talk about anatomy of an urban crisis, defining modern disasters and their health impacts. When we hear the word about disaster, we often think about earthquakes, maybe, floods, maybe, landslides, maybe, storms, or fires. But today, I would like to invite you to look at disaster from a different perspective. A disaster is not simply about the hazard itself. The real crisis begins when a hazard interacts with people, urban infrastructure, and vulnerable communities. And when the systems that protect our health begin to fail. So, in this presentation, I will use a simple framework: hazard, maybe, exposure, vulnerability, health impact, and finally, resilience. This is what I call the core diagnosis of an urban crisis. And the key question that I would like us to consider today is, how does an urban hazard become a health crisis? To answer the question, let us first understand why cities themselves are becoming the front line of disaster risk. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, this is the core of diagnosis. So let us start with the core of diagnosis. When we analyze of an urban crisis, we need to move beyond the question of what happened. We also need to ask who was exposed, who was vulnerable, what were the health consequences, and how capable was the system to recover. This slide presents the framework that I use to understand of urban crisis. The first element is hazard. Hazard is the initial physical shock. It could be a flood, an extreme heat event, maybe an earthquake, a storm, a fire, or even a technological failure. But a hazard alone does not necessarily become a disaster. This is the first element of hazard. The second element is exposure. Exposure tells us who and what is in the path of the hazard. People, hospitals, houses, roads, electricity system, water supply, and the other critical infrastructure. Then we have vulnerability. Vulnerability refers to the structural, social, environmental, and psychological weakness that determine how severely people and systems are affected. And this is where the health dimension becomes very important. And the fourth element is health impact. This is represents the physical, psychological, and system consequence of the crisis, from injuries and disease to increased mortality, maybe mental health problems and disruption of health services. And then finally, we have resilience. Resilience is the capacity of the urban system to absorb, adapt, respond, and recover. So the important message in this slide here is a hazard is the trigger, but vulnerability and exposure determine the magnitude of the crisis, while resilience determines how well the city can recover. And that leads us to an important question of this slide: what makes a modern urban disaster different from a traditional disaster? The answer is complexity. Modern urban disasters are rarely isolated events. They are increasingly interconnected, compound, and cascading. Okay, please the next slide. So, why are cities becoming the new frontline? The first reason is simple. Urbanization is concentrating people, infrastructure, and economic activity in the same places. Today, more than half of the world's population lives in urban areas. And according to the World Health Organization, this proportion is projected to reach approximately 68% by 2050 years. What does this mean for disaster risk? It means that when a hazard occurs in a densely populated city, the number of people and system exposed to the hazard can be enormous. But population density is only part of the story. The second issue is interdependency. Modern cities depend on interconnected system, electricity, water, transportation, telecommunication, hospitals, food supply, and emergency services maybe. When one system fails, other system may also be affected. Let us look at the Indonesian context. Indonesia is highly exposed to multiple disaster hazards, and the challenges is not limited to one particular region. Recent WHO information indicate at the 97% of Indonesia population live in disaster prone area. And in 2024 years alone, 142 health facilities were impacted by climate-related disaster. This is important because when a health facility is damaged for losses, access to electricity, water, transportation, or medical supplies, and the impact goes far beyond the building itself. It can affect the continuity of healthcare services and ultimately patient outcomes. So the key message in this slide is urbanization concentrates exposure, while infrastructure interdependence amplifies risk. A shock that might appear local at the beginning can quickly become a system-wide crisis. And this is one the defining characteristic of the modern urban disaster. But exposure alone does not explain why some populations suffer much more than others. To understand that difference, we need to look at vulnerability. Okay, the next slide. This is so what exactly do we mean by a modern urban disaster? A modern urban disaster is rarely caused by a single hazard. Instead, it is often the disruption of interconnected urban system under extreme stress. Let me briefly explain these four categories. First, natural hazard. What the meaning of natural hazard? They include floods, extreme heat, storm, droughts, and earthquakes maybe. These are hazards that we traditionally associate with disaster. The second about the technological hazard, modern cities are highly depend on electricity, digital networks, transportation system, industrial facilities, and maybe chemical infrastructure. Therefore, a failure in one critical technological system can affect thousands or even millions of people. The third about the biological hazard, maybe outbreaks and pandemics remind us that biological threats can spread rapidly through densely connected urban population. And finally, we have what I consider the most challenging category, compound and cascading disaster. This is where multiple hazards interact, where one event triggers chain a failure across different urban systems. For example, maybe an extreme weather event may cause flooding. The flooding may then disrupt electricity. The loss of electricity may affect hospitals, water supply, transportation, and communication. And suddenly, what starts as a natural hazard becomes a system-wide urban crisis. So when we talk about modern disaster, we should not only ask what is the hazard, we should also ask what system depend on each other and what happens when one of them fails. This is the fundamental shift from traditional disaster thinking to modern urban risk thinking. Okay, the next slide. Now let us look more closely at the anatomy of urban risk. If we want to understand why the same hazards can produce very different health outcomes in different communities, we need to look at three interacting components: the hazard, the second of exposure, then the third about vulnerability. Let us start with hazard. Hazard describes the intensity, frequency, and duration of the event. For example, a short period maybe of moderate heat is very different from several consecutive days of extreme heat. The second component is exposure. Exposure tells us who and what is located in the path of the hazard. This includes people, homes, hospitals, schools, transportation networks maybe, and the other critical services. But exposure alone is still enough to explain the health risk. We also need to understand the loss of they understand about the vulnerability. Vulnerability represents the baseline sensitivity of people and systems together with their ability on or inability to cope and adapt. Think about two communities experiencing exactly the same flood. One community may have strong housing, good drainage, reliable healthcare maybe, and early warning system and the resources to evacuate. Another community may have poor housing, limited access to healthcare, low income and very limited capacity to respond. The hazard is the same, but the health consequence can be completely different. And this is the key point of this slide: hazard, exposure, and vulnerability is a health risk. In the other words, a disaster becomes a health crisis when acute exposure meets structural vulnerability. This is why disaster preparedness cannot focus only on the hazard. We must also understand who is exposed, who is vulnerable, and what capacity exists to protect them. So far, we have discussed the anatomy of risk as a framework. Now, let us see what this looks like in real urban health emergency. Let us begin with one of the most underestimated urban hazard. Okay, next slide. Now we can take the diagnosis one step further. We have established that hazard, exposure, and vulnerability determine health risks. But how does a physical hazard actually translate into a health outcome? The answer is strong, multiple pathways. This is the slide. The first pathways is a psychological. The second pathways is infrastructure failure. The third pathway is environmental. And the fourth pathway is displacement. So what we see here is that the pathway from hazard to health is not necessarily a straight line. It is a network of interconnected pathways. Infrastructure failure, psychological, environmental, and displacement. For example, a flood may directly cause injury, but at the same time, it may damage electricity system, contaminate water, disrupt healthcare services, and displace communities. This effect can then accumulate and produce negative health outcomes. Therefore, when we assess disaster health risk, we need to look beyond the immediate injury. We need to understand the entire pathway from the physical hazard to the final health outcome. And this is the particularly important in urban environments where infrastructure maybe people and ecosystem are tightly interconnected. Okay, next slide. Let us now move from the framework to real world example. The first example about the floods. Flooding is often perceived primarily as a physical or environmental hazard. But in an urban setting, flooding can rapidly become a public health emergency. On the left, we can see the city. When flood water enters an urban area, the consequences are not limited to damaged buildings and roads. Flooding can disrupt hospitals, transportation, sanitation system, water supply, and food supply chains maybe. And this is a very important point. A flood is not only a physical hazard, it can become a public health system failure. For example, when roads are flooded, ambulance may not be able to reach patients. When hospitals lose access or crises are disrupted, emergency care can be compromised. When sanitation system fail, maybe contaminated water can spread throughout the community. Now let us look at the body and the health system on the right. There are at least three major pathways of health impact. First, directly physical injury. The second, infectious and water-related disease. And the third, about respiratory consequence. After the flood, persist moisture and mold can contribute to respiratory problems, particularly among vulnerable population.
Yeah.
Okay, the next
Dr.
slide.
Miswar, Dr.
Yeah.
Miswar, do you need some extra time for about maybe 2 or 3 minutes?
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, this is the air pollution and urban fire. Let us move to our second urban stressor, air pollution, including urban fire and smoke. On the left, we see the city. Maybe it can result from the interaction of traffic, industry, waste burning, and smoke from urban and wildfires. What happened after people breathe this polluted air? Okay, clean air shelter and proactive risk communication should be treated as critical public health intervention. It is a health intervention. Okay, next slide. Now let us move to our third urban stressor, infectious disease. Cities are networks of movement, interaction and exchange, density, mobility, sanitation, and environmental condition. The first about of density, the second about mobility, the third about sanitation, and the fourth about environmental condition. Okay, the next slide. Okay, this is the modern urban disaster rarely remain confined to one hazard or one location. A flood can cause the power outage, which can disrupt hospital and delay treatment. The key message is the final health impact may occur several steps away from the original hazard. This is the essence of the cascading disaster. Therefore, urban resilience must be designed as an interconnected system. Okay, next slide. Now, we come to one of the most important questions in disaster risk. Who pays the highest price? Disaster risk are never distributed equally. So the hazard may be the same, but the risk is not. We need vulnerability informed about preparedness. Okay, the next slide. This is the hospitals are not isolated island. They are deeply embedded with the urban system. Importantly, a hospital does not have to physically collapse to become dysfunctional. It can remain structurally intact, but become functionally unavailable. Healthcare resilience begins for beyond the hospital walls. A resilient health system requires a resilient city. Okay, next slide. So far, we have diagnosed the problem. We have seen how hazard interact with exposure and vulnerability, how disaster cascade through interconnected urban system maybe, and how these failures ultimately affect of human health. The ultimate goal is simple, to move from measuring disaster to managing risk. Okay, next slide. So if this is the diagnosis, what is the treatment? Treatment plan from reactive response to urban resilience. From treating the consequence to reducing vulnerability before the consequence occur, and from isolated intervention to system-wide resilience. Okay, the next slide. So let me conclude this discussion with a practical framework. If we want to prevent the next urban crisis from becoming a major health crisis, decision makers need to ask 5 critical. What we treat the emergency from may actually be the final consequence to failure that began somewhere else in the city. And ultimately, the true measures of resilience is not whether a city experience or a hazard, but whether its people remain safe, health, and able to recover. Okay, the last slide, the end about this presentation. Design the city for health. Let me close with one simple idea. Design the city for health. A modern disaster is not just about extreme weather. It is really maybe a test of how our cities are designed, governed, and connected. A hazard becomes a disaster when it meets exposure, vulnerability, and weak systems. And when urban system interconnected, one failure can quickly trigger another and eventually become a health crisis. So we need to move beyond reactive disaster response. We need cities that can absorb shocks without amplifying inequality. We need to put human health at the center of urban planning. And we need to protect our hospitals and critical infrastructure before the crisis occurs, not only after it happens. Because a truly resilient city is not simply a city that can survive a disaster. It is a city that protects its people. And what is my final message today is very simple. Resilience is ultimately a public health strategy. Resilience is ultimately a public health strategy. Thank you very much. It has
Thank you.
been a great pleasure to share this perspective with you. I look forward to the discussion. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you, Mr. Dr. Mizwar. We have learned so much and very interesting presentations because you also use some kind of a medical framework, about the anatomy and then how to diagnose. And then recently you also share about how to treat. So it is actually the framework for a medical, and then you try to apply it in the urban disasters. This is interesting, and I really hope that we can have fruitful discussions after these sessions. Thank you, Dr. Mizwar.
Thank you, Dr. Sylvia.
So shall we continue to another speaker? Well, the next challenges is also transforming the vulnerable, the crisis into the resilience. We are proudly to invite our next speaker, Associate Professor Achilles Surgeon. Yes. Hello. Hello, Prof. Achilles. Can you hear me?
Hello, can you hear me?
Okay. Yes, of course. Your sound is clear enough. And
Thank you.
let me introduce you by recently screen your CV first. Please, the CV for Associate Professor Achilles. Okay. So this is my pleasure to introduce our distinguished international speaker, Associate Professor Achilles Surgeon. Professor Achilles Surgeons is internationally recognized as one of the leading experts in disaster resilience, the climate change adaptations, and humanitarian studies. He's now currently serves as a research and team leader for humanitarian, emergency, and disaster management. Associate Professor Surgeon has a PhD in Global Environmental Study from Kyoto University in Japan, and he has made a significant contributions in global research and global disaster risk reductions through his work. And then he also worked in Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or IPCC. And right now, he also contributes for the United Nations Global Assessment Report on Disaster Risk Reductions and review the IPCC Special Report on managing the risk of extreme event and disaster. Professor also the author of influential books. Prof, we are very delighted to introduce your book, Urban Disaster and Resilience in Asia. And also he served as editorial board for several international respected journals, including the Progress in Disaster Science and Environmental Hazard. So we are truly honored from our faculty. Hopefully someday you can in person have a meeting or discussions with us here in Indonesia. And ladies and gentlemen, please join me to welcome Associate Professor Achilles Surgeon. Professor, the screen is yours.
Well, thank you very much for this generous introduction, Ibu Sylvia. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat siang, Bapak dan Ibu. It is a great pleasure to join you today. Thank you very much for having me. I'm so glad that the Faculty of Medicine at Unjani is organizing this extremely important webinar, and it has such a great attendance of, I can see 298 participants. That's really amazing. I understand that the time is limited, so can I kindly request that my slides are shown on the screen so that I can start my presentation. And while the slides are loaded, I would like to acknowledge that I am delivering this lecture from a city of Darwin, which is part of the Northern Australia. And I would like to pay my respect to the ancestral people of this lands, the Aboriginal people, the indigenous people, and I would like to pay my respect to the elders past, present, and emerging. Can we move on to the next slide, please? The previous speakers have deliberated fantastically on the aspects, so I would probably skip some of the things. But I would like to talk from 3 or 4 different contexts when I deliver my talk about the urban risk. The first context is thinking about the people. Next slide, please. I do not know how many of you have heard about the Bhopal gas tragedy. This is a tragedy happened on the night of 3rd of December 1984, and it has happened in a Union Carbide pesticide plant, which was an American company operating in the city of Bhopal in India. And on this day, this event has happened about 42 years ago. It is still considered as one of the worst industrial disaster ever happened in the human history. This pesticide plant was surrounded by the slums of shanty towns. More than 600,000 people were exposed to the deadly gas cloud that night. And you are medical professionals, probably you know that methyl isocyanate is a extremely lethal gas. And the gas stayed low on the ground because it was a winter time. So what has happened, let's say you are sleeping in your home, and then and this is 1984, it means there was no internet, there was no WhatsApp, there was no, very few homes have, telephones. And you're sleeping in the middle of the night and you started coughing, and everybody else in the family is coughing. When everybody is coughing, what you feel, you might think that something is burning in the house. You check in the kitchen, everything is okay. You check the power lines, everything okay. And if you feel suffocation in the house, the first thing you do is open your doors and windows. When you open your doors and windows, you also see your neighbors are also opening their doors and windows. They are coughing, they are suffocating, they are feeling, itchiness in their eyes and, throat and all that. And then what you do next? You think that somebody will give a news that, hey, some gas has leaked somewhere, but we don't know from which direction gas has leaked. And people started running. At that time, there were not so many automobiles or scooters or cars, so people were literally going on foot or by bicycle. In this process, they were even inhaling more gas outside, and this poisonous gas has caused 3,800 deaths in just one night and 8,000 deaths in the next 2 weeks. Over 20,000 people have died due to the gas exposure in the last 42 years. And about the same number of premature deaths are also reported. Can you go to the next slide, please? This is the map of India, and you can see the city of Bhopal. It was also reported in the Time magazine as India's disaster. And why this disaster happened? Can you please move on to the next slide, please? This happened because in 1970s, the Indian government was welcoming foreign investment. And because an American company was, doing an investment in India at that time, the land use of the original factory site was changed from light industry to hazardous industry. And they thought that because the companies coming from America, they have very, very high standards of safety. And because of that, it's okay to have the hazardous industry sitting in the heart of the city. This is a clear case of the corporate negligence and the failure of authorities. And because of this gas leak, uh, stillbirth in the city have increased by 300%. Neonatal mortality was increased by 200%. And there were a lot of long-term health impacts. For example, people have started to having cataract at the age of 18 or 20. There were severe and chronic respiratory tract problems. There were neurological system related issues. And of course, there was PTSD and psychological impact. Next slide, please. The question is why people were ignored, why off-site emergency management plant was not prepared in this city, and what was supposed to be informed by the authorities to the people who were living around that. Can you believe so many lives would have saved on that day if a handkerchief or a small piece of cloth or maybe hand towel was soaked in the water, and if they put it on their nose, they would be saved from inhaling this poisonous gas. So on the 3rd of December 1984, streets of the city of Bhopal were littered with human corpses and carcasses of buffaloes, cows, dogs, and even birds. Local hospitals, importantly, they were overwhelmed with sick and affected people, and they don't know what has happened. They do not know what is the antidote for it. Doctors had no clue on what exactly was the gas inhaled and what is the effect of the gas and what is the antidote for it. The city is still haunted by the tragedy, but it continued to grow. And today, the city is home to more than about 3 million people. This shows the strength of the people and salute to the resilience of the people of Bhopal. At the same time, it helps us to understand that the way we look at urban disasters could have very different dimensions beyond, for example, earthquakes, floods, and cyclones and tsunamis, etc. Move on to the next slide, please. The second context is the growth of human settlement. Next slide, please. So as we know, and previous speaker have also said that the urban population is growing quite fast, and the global population is about 8.2 or 8.3 billion at the moment, and within that, a big number of it, more than 50% of it, I think close to 60% of the people in the world now live in urban areas. And the largest population in the world is in India and China. And they also remain the two most populous countries, consisting of about 35% of the global population. Next slide, please. The cities brings both good news and the bad news. We are talking about cities, we are talking about the urban risk. The bad news is that cities consume 75% of the natural resources of the world. So consider that 55% population consuming 75% of the natural resources. And they are also accountable for 80% of the global greenhouse gas emissions. Next slide, please. The good news is cities also generate enormous revenue. They generate 85% of the global GDP in the cities. It means cities are important for the economic growth. At the same time, they are also hazardous when it comes to the climate change. Next slide, please. We are doing this workshop in the Asia Pacific region. So let's focus on this circle, not the entire world. Right now, more people are living inside this circle than the rest of the world at the moment. Next slide, please. And unfortunately, 87% of all the people worldwide who are impacted by the natural hazard-induced disasters, they also live inside this circle. So yes, the things are very chaotic. And as we can see, the urban risk is highly concentrated in the Asia Pacific region, including Indonesia. Next slide, please. The third context I want to talk about is the knowns and unknowns. Next slide. This is another example of the urban risk. There was a landslide happen in Manila, the capital of Philippines. When I use the word landslide, you think that, okay, there's a hill, and from the hill, maybe, rocks are falling down. Maybe the whole mountain is collapsing, for example. But this was a different kind of landslide. This happened in the year 2000. Previous slide, please. Where it was a big mountain of the garbage, and that garbage mountain collapsed, and it has killed 300 people. I'm very much aware that Indonesia also has experienced this kind of disaster. Next slide, please. And this is known as the Pacific Ring of Fire. This ring of fire is one of the most active seismic zone in the world, and Indonesia, and you can see a lot of other countries in the Asia Pacific are part of it. Next slide, please. When we look at the constraints of urban risk, we consider biological hazards, chemical hazards, and physical hazards. That is fine. At the same time, we need to be aware of the vulnerability. And as a part of the developing country, candidates, we understand that there are a lot of people who live with poverty. There is a gender bias, class, caste, ethnicity, but also there are risk multipliers. For example, weaknesses of the institutions, poor urban management, inadequate public health services, including water, sanitation, drainage, garbage collection, etc. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. And because of this, we have to acknowledge and understand that we cannot prevent a hazard from happening. Hazard will happen. All we need to do is to prevent it from becoming a disaster. Next slide, please. And this is a quick snapshot of the flooding events in Indonesia, for example. And as you can see in the last 25 years, the number of flood events are increasing year by year. And especially there is a measurable increase from year 2010. Next slide, please. So what we need to do is we have to make right choices. You can see this is one of the university building in Myanmar. A brand new university building got flooded in its first year. It means they have made a wrong choice by putting this university in a flood prone zone. So we have to make right choice and we have to make right decisions. Next slide, please. Uh, Unfortunately, our decisions are still very reactive rather than proactive. Even in Australia, they spend only $1 before the disaster, but they would love to spend $10 after the disaster. Whereas we should spend more before the disaster so that consequences can be minimized. Next slide, please. And there is enough literature about the urban risk issues, but there is a very little action, and we have to go very far. And next slide, please. Towards this, we have to prevent hazards to become a disaster, but rather build it into a resilience opportunity. Next slide. So in the resilience paradigm is also shifting. You know, we were very response oriented. We moved on to the disaster risk management, and now we are moved on to the climate adaptation, health system resilience, and sustainable urban development. We are gradually moving towards it, but the progress is slow. Next slide. And ASEAN, which is a big regional body, and Indonesia is hosting ASEAN, we must understand that they also moved on that resilience must be regional. And they have started advocating for anticipating, preparing, acting, recovering, and adapting rather than only responding. Next slide, please. A resilient city is also a healthy city where not only the health services work effectively, but water and sanitation, energy, transport and emergency services, and environment and ecosystem, they all work together. Keeping in the center health and well-being is extremely important for the resilience building. Next slide, please. And risk reduction is not expensive. It is an investment for better well-being of the human lives. That is why we need to invest more in the better infrastructure, early warning, nature-based solutions, social protection, health system preparedness, and disaster risk financing. Next slide. And towards this, what Indonesia can do differently? Indonesia should focus more on integrating disaster risk reduction with the adaptation to climate change and also better health planning. They should make their hospitals and primary care networks more disaster resilient. And they should measure resilience using health and social outcomes, not just by deaths and the losses. Next slide, please. The resilient city of the future will not be judged only by how many buildings remain standing or how many buildings are collapsed. It will be judged by how many people remain healthy, how many essential services like water supply, sanitation continue to work, and how many vulnerable people, the poor people, people with the lesser opportunities are protected. And that is how we can not only we cannot eliminate natural hazards, but we can prevent hazards from becoming health disasters or the mega disasters. Next slide, please. So my last message is that we need a paradigm shift. We need to create a culture of prevention rather than the culture of reaction. And towards this, yes, there is a long way to go, but we need to identify champions in the urban sector, and the health sector is rightly placed to make that change happen. And I would like to once again acknowledge the wonderful seminar organized by the Faculty of Medicine, who is taking lead in, from the University of Unjani to organize this seminar on this important topic. Next slide, please. Well, there was one more, but I think it was all about thanking you very much, Terima kasih, and I really thank you for inviting me for this wonderful seminar.
Thank you, Professor Achilles. Have you ever been to Indonesia before?
I've been there several times.
Have you ever been to Bandung or Cimahi?
I have been to, my first visit was to Banda Aceh because I work in disasters, so you can imagine. And then I've been to, of course, Jakarta, Yogyakarta, Medan. Of course, Bali is very close, so I've been to Bali, not only for tourism, but also for various conferences on disasters. Unfortunately, not to Bandung and not to Cimahi, but but I would love to come there and
Certainly.
spend maybe a few days and talk to your faculties and students.
Sure, sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hopefully, in the future, you can
Certainly.
have discussions in person with us. So thank
Certainly.
you very much, Professor Achilles. That's a warm one message that we can have as the first learning lesson or lesson learned for your presentations, that we cannot prevent the hazard, but we can prevent disaster. And I think when your 7 recommendation for Indonesia, hopefully we can be the entering situations to have these recommendations gonna be added by Indonesian government. So thank you again, Prof. Achilles, and we will see you at the discussions after the third speakers. Thank you,
Yeah, my
Professor.
apologies. I was rushing in my presentation because I thought the time was limited. My apologies
Yes,
if I was
of
too
course.
fast.
It's
Thank you.
a very clear presentations. Thank you,
Thank you.
Professor. So we go on to the next speaker. This is my pleasure also to invite Dr. Bagus Cahyono, Master of Public Health. He will deliver the presentations entitled Beyond the Golden Hour, Harmonizing Emergency Medicines and Public Health in Urban Disaster. Dr. Bagus Cahyono and also Dr. Pak Berton as our speakers. In the first speakers is actually our lecturers in medical faculty of Jenderal Ahmadiyani University. So Dr. Bagus, I would like to introduce your CV first before you start your presentations. Please, committee. Thank you. So Dr. Bagus Cahyono achieved his medical degree from Universitas Airlangga and Master of Public Health from University of South Carolina. And recently, he also completed his doctoral studies at Universitas Brawijaya. And throughout his career, he has undertaken extensive international training for trauma care, preventive medicines, emergency management, disaster response across Asia, Europe, Australia, and also United States. He has served as exercise director for the Asian Regional Disaster Emergency Response Simulation Exercise. And currently, he contributes as the assessor of disaster management expert, and he also our lectures as well. And with his broad experience in emergency medicines, and he also has the medical and military background. And also his regional disaster preparedness, uniqueness, and he will help us to get more understanding about strengthening disaster response and also resilience in urban setting. So ladies and gentlemen, please join me to welcome Dr. Bagus Cahyono. Dr. Bagus, the screen is yours.
Thank you. I will share my PPT. It's okay. Let's see. Is clear?
Yes, doctor, you may start.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you, Dr. Sylvie, for brief introduction. I changed the title a little bit, focusing on harmonizing response mechanism. Yeah? How Indonesian government have a seamless disaster response in emergency medicine and public health in urban disaster. Yeah, urban disaster triggers severe health crisis due to high population density, failing critical infrastructure, and rapid contamination. And key threats include trauma injuries from structural collapse, infectious disease outbreak from broken sanitation, and clean water shortage and widespread mental health trauma. So how we dealing with complex disaster response in urban disaster? That's important that there is a bridge. How to bridge between individual patient care to population level survival. And then for the individual patient care, we will deal with emergency medicine like rapid triage, and then immediate trauma care and clinical stabilization. And for the population level survival, dealing with public health problem like disease surveillance, disease preventions, and resource allocation. So how to make a seamless disaster response mechanism? So requires an integrated collaborative response to complex urban disaster, from activation of national disaster emergency command center, and then to health cluster, to the health emergency operating center, and then to the recovery form. We will talk it later. Okay, so how to harmonizing response from the emergency response perspective and public health response perspective. During the emergency situation, the main purpose is to save life and save disabilities. On the public health response aspect, make sure there are no outbreaks. And then from the emergency situation comes to the emergency transition period, ensure all the healthcare needs are met. And then from the public health side, make sure there is no threat or potential outbreak. And then this is for understanding that Indonesia, fortunately, have a law and regulation is very good for disaster management. So when a disaster occur in certain area in Indonesia, the head of the local government will declare state of emergency. Once the head of the local government declare a state of emergency, and then automatically will activate the disaster emergency management command system. The activation of disaster emergency command system will automatically activate the command post, followed by the activation of health cluster, and then followed by the activation of health emergency operation center by the head of the local health office, and then they will organize and manage the emergency medical team, and then follow to the post-health crisis recovery. This is a picture of harmonizing a disaster mechanism response. It's seamless disaster response from the initial emergency response to medical response, and then public response, and follow to the post-health crisis recovery. And I try to put in the flow of this, that the seamless disaster emergency response first will deal with the medical crisis, and then when there are many displaced person or displaced people, or we call it in Indonesia refugees, usually followed by the public health crisis. And then after the crisis is recede, followed by the recovery of post-health crisis. So I mentioned again about the important role of the disaster emergency management command system, activation to the health cluster, and then activation to the health emergency operations center. All the procedures start with initial rapid health assessment and then follow up with public health crisis need assessment. So now we come with the health cluster. Health cluster actually established by the WHO and then adopted with all member states, including Indonesia. This is very good system approach how to integratively and comprehensively dealing with disaster response, especially health crisis. So what is the health cluster? It's a group of crisis response agencies and personnel that cooperate, coordinate, and collaborate to meet public health service during emergency or disasters. The objectives and function unifying communication, data sharing among health agency and other sectors, and then accelerating the evacuation of the injured and sick to the nearest medical facilities, and then preventing the spread of infectious diseases in evacuation centers, and distributing medical supplies and deploying medical personnel. So Indonesia is lucky that the government has a national cluster for disaster management based on the degree of the head of the National Disaster Management Agency. In 2024, there are 6 clusters. One of them is health cluster and coordinated by Ministry of Health with a member of Ministry of Social Affairs, Ministry of Health, the military, the police, and the non-government element, and also for the stakeholders related to the government response. And if we go to the detail, health cluster consists of 7 sub-health cluster. Yeah? The first is health services. The task is providing medical services. And then disease control health. The task is disease control and environmental health and provision of clean water and quality sanitation. And then reproductive health, mental health, disaster victim identification, and then nutrition and health promotion. For the DVI, actually managed by the police, the national police. Okay, this is the organization of health cluster. So the head of the health cluster is the head of local head office, and then supported by data and information team, and then healthcare logistic team, and health promotion team, and all the health cluster working together to provide a comprehensive health care. Yeah, this is typically example of integrated and collaborative health crisis response. And then the cluster will be managed and organized under the supervision of Health Emergency Operation Center. Yeah, the duty of HEOC, first providing health services and the protection to affected communities through health crisis emergency response activities. Second, coordinate and collaborate with disaster management agency and other related institution and organization. So there's the duty of the coordinator at HOC. There are 5 duties that coordinated with the health cluster. First is about planning, and then operational, logistic, data information and surveillance, planning and funding, and all the activities jointly with a cluster, sub-cluster response will have a integrated and collaborative health crisis response. So health cluster and health emergency operating center, they work closely and interconnected. So what is the relationship between health cluster and health emergency operation center? The health cluster and the health emergency operation center are interconnected, functioning as a coordination system and a command center. And the health cluster serves as a platform for cross-sector and inter-organizational collaboration, while the HEOC act as the physical show how the HEOC work with clusters, and then how the HEOC managing and organizing emergency medical team. So under the health service subcluster, EMTCC is organized, emergency medical team coordination cell. What is the job of the EMTCC? EMTCC organize and managing all the EMT from the outside disaster area coming to the disaster area, and then managing and organized by the HEOC. So they know EMT from a certain area will be deployed to certain area, and then another EMT will be assigned to another area. So all are coordinated by the health emergency operating center. Yeah, this is to show the picture of how the response mechanism in Indonesia already integrated with the aspect of emergency and then prolonged during refugees, and then after the disaster there is a recovery phase. So now we have come to the recovery post-health crisis. Post-disaster health crisis recovery focuses on restoring medical infrastructure, preventing disease outbreaks, and supporting mental health. Recovery action must address clean water access, chronic care continuity, and psychological trauma. So this is the flow, the structure, the flow, how the recovery post-health crisis happen. As I mentioned before, the first is physical health recovery. Yeah, recovery from the injury treatment, disease control, and nutrition support, and then dealing with we call it silent trauma, mental health recovery, conducted psychological first aid, trauma counseling, and community support, and then public health system recovery, facility repair, supply restoration, and services renewal. All these three aspects will be put into priority during a post-health crisis recovery. So the idea of post-health crisis recovery is to bring back the condition before disaster be better, safer, and sustainable. Okay, this is the references. That concludes my presentation. Thank you. Back to the moderator.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Bagus Cahyono, for brief informations and presentations that lead us to the comprehensive and also coordinations that help to manage disasters. So there is no single institutions can effectively manage disaster or even in the cycle of disaster. So thank you again, Dr. Bagus, and I would like to invite, this is only two speakers, but I think this is going to be a fruitful discussions for us in today's webinar. I would like to invite also Professor Achilles for the discussion sessions. Professor, and also the committee, please help us to set the screen. Okay, thank you. So Professor Achilles and Dr. Bagus, this is the time for us to have discussions, and I have various various questions from all of participants. And after this, maybe we also invite our participants to ask more in the Zoom meeting. Okay, but first, I would like to read the first questions about the urban disaster. Should we still define the health impact mainly by mortality and injuries, or are the disrupted healthcare access, chronic disease deteriorations, mental health and social vulnerability, the real hidden burden? So I think if Dr. Miswar doesn't here anymore, because he also has another agenda, and in this very good evening, and I would like to invite Professor Achilles or Dr. Bagus, who maybe will answer these questions. Maybe Prof. Achilles.
Sorry, I thought this question is to Dr. Miswar.
Yes, yes, Professor, but he actually cannot join with us.
All right. Okay.
Present
I
time.
understand that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you
Let
for your
me-
understanding.
Yep. See, the question is about how we defined urban disaster. Should we still define health impact mainly by mortality and injuries, or are disrupted healthcare access, chronic disease deterioration, mental health, and social vulnerability the real hidden burden? It's a very important question for Haya, and very intelligent question as well. And you are right, as a global humanity, we are still learning what is the real cost of disasters. Initially, we say, okay, disaster X has happened. These many number of people have lost their life. These many houses are fully collapsed. These many houses are partially collapsed. These many houses are, minorly collapsed, etc., etc. And unfortunately, we are unable to put a dollar value or the rupiah value on things like the long-term mental health, the existing root causes of the disaster. Why in the first place buildings have collapsed? Why in the first place some people are disproportionately impacted compared to others? Why healthcare, which is so crucial and it must be given the top priority, is also impacted? So healthcare and healthcare workers and doctors in the hospitals also become the victim of the disaster. And that should not happen. So I would like to completely agree with you that we need to think about new definition where urban disaster is not only defined by the mortality and injuries and loss of assets, but we should look at the long-term recovery and
Yes.
impacts on various aspects of life. Some things which are tangible, some which are untangible. Thank you.
Yes, and that's the hidden burden in the urban
Exactly.
disaster. Okay,
Very true.
thank you, Professor. Dr. Bagus, do you have something to add about this?
Yeah, just to echo with Professor, that the first 3 days, usually we are dealing with the mortality and injuries. Yeah, the first 3 days, because we have to catch with the golden period. Yeah.
Yes.
And then when there is 1,000 maybe displaced person and refugees, and the need of the temporary shelter become another chronic disease deterioration, mental health, especially for the children, and also shortage of water, sanitation will be a big problem. And if the disaster is earthquake, will be a big problem with a collapsed building, then disruption with the healthcare access. Yeah, the hospital is collapsed, the surgery operation room is collapsed, then another big problem for the urban disaster. So we have to dealing with all of these problem, especially if there is a refugee or displaced person. I think this is from me.
Yes. Okay, thank you, Dr. Bagus. And we shall go to the next questions, please. So the next questions, also from Fayara for Professor Achilles. When climate extreme exceed a historical model, does relying on hazard-specific preparedness create a dangerous blind spot? I think blind spot. And should urban health system instead prioritize the capability that remain effective across flood, heat wave, storm, fires, and cascading failures, Professor? I think you are in the mute right
I'm
now.
so
Okay.
I'm so impressed with the question, and this question
Yes.
is again from Farhaya.
Yeah.
I mean, this person speaks like a pro, and very,
Yes.
very
Maybe we can
important.
invite her.
Yes, yes, this is
Yeah.
a fantastic question, and yeah, the first line of answer is past is no more indicator of the future. So what we have experienced in the past 30 years or 100 years or 200 years or even 1000 years is no more a good indicator what we are going to have see in future. So you are right, Farhaya, that if we look at the historical models, historical data, and if we completely rely only on that, then we are certainly not doing justice to the future planning. At the same time, we as a human, we need some benchmarking where we should go, what should be our goal, what should be our aim. And you already answered this in your second point, that we should prioritize on the capability building. Because I think in my presentation, I said that we cannot eliminate the hazards to happen. Okay, there are different theories about hazards. If you look at the time immemorial, as a human, we believe that we are very weak and disasters are very big, earthquake or flood or cyclone or tsunami. And what we say it is an act of God. And we believe that it is an act of God and we have to be victim of it because we do bad things in our life. And that is why the God is punishing us. That theory, and still there is a significant section in the society who believes
Yes.
in this theory. And I'll take you to another example. I lived in Japan for 10 years. I worked with the Kyoto University. In Kyoto University in 1951, 75 years ago from today, they established an institution called DPRI, Disaster Prevention Research Institution. Back in 1951, they used to think that they will be able to prevent the disaster. They will be able to prevent the earthquake from happening. They will be able to prevent the flood from happening. Only after the 1995 strong Kobe earthquake, they realized that no, we have to learn to live with the disasters and we have to now invest in building capabilities and not only invest in the hard infrastructure or science and technology, but we also have to empower people, including children, including elderly, including health infrastructure, including people from all walks of life, whether they are literate or illiterate, rich or poor, whether they live in urban areas or the rural areas. And that is where I think your point about the capability is very well taken. And they need, especially health systems. Yes, health systems should be given topmost priority. If a massive earthquake comes in a district, my health, the big hospital should not collapse and it should be made completely resilient, completely, using the earthquake resistant technology, because that should not collapse, because that will be serving the people. Thank you for this very, very intelligent question for Aya.
Right, because Faraya has a remarkable questions. Maybe a committee, can you invite Faraya? So Prof. Achilles can also
That's very interesting and it will be my
yeah, that's
honor.
very
Yeah.
interesting. Faraya, are you joining the discussions right now?
Well,
Oh,
sometimes
yeah.
people are shy. They prefer to type
Yeah.
rather than speak, but very intelligent.
Yes,
I
yes.
must say this is a fantastic
Okay.
question. Yeah.
Thank you. I think Farah is here, but maybe she's too shy to meet you, Professor. Hopefully, we can meet after this in person. Yeah. Okay, Dr. Bagus, do you have something to add about this?
Yeah, this is very good question, John. I just want to simplify my opinion. In Indonesia, we now encouraged by the government to have a contingency plan, yeah, specific to the certain health risk. Yeah. So based on the contingency plan, certain area they know what to do. They do the certain risk analysis, etc. And then in the contingency plan, they have all the impact analysis, probability analysis, and then logistical and resource analysis, and how to deploy all the resources during disaster. So we come to the understanding that even though the climate change is important, but dealing with day-to-day disaster management is more realistic and practical for us because Indonesia is the third after India for the World Risk Index. The first is the Philippines. So dealing with natural disaster, and we have a contingency plan, and we always have a training simulation exercise for the preparedness. That's more important. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Bagus. And also, as Professor Achilles mentioned before, we have to shift to the culture of preventions, not only responding in disaster. Okay, so shall we go to another questions? I think, okay. From Agus Trijoko to Professor Achilles. Can resilience itself create a compliancy? If a city repeatedly withstand disaster, might successful adaptations encourage a greater development in a high-risk area and ultimately increase the scale of the next catastrophe. Okay, Prof.
Another very, very intelligent question, Pak August Trichoko. Can resilience itself create complacency? What a beautiful question it is. Resilience is an imaginary concept which has been defined by different disciplines in different ways. First time the word resilience appeared in the, I think, environment-related dialogues, like when people talk about ecosystems and environment, etc. Gradually, it has entered into the realm of disaster management. The fact is that resilience, by its foundational nature, should not create complacency. Rather, it should create redundancy in the system so that the system is not only preparing for what they have experienced in the past, but preparing for something which they have not seen before. So not only preparing for the certain future, but also uncertain future. Not only preparing for one event, but also preparing for the cascading events. For example, when I lived in Japan, I have experienced a big earthquake leading to tsunami, followed by the nuclear power in the explosion in the Tohoku region. Now it is known as cascading effect. It is known as triple tragedy, and I think complacency will not help us to overcome this. In fact, every disaster gives us multiple lessons. Every disaster is unique, and I think resilience, if it is one of the goal, it is not an end goal. It is rather an iterative process. It means we continuously strive towards making ourselves more and more better to learn from the events, to learn from its impacts, including cascading impact, and prepare for more complex emergencies in future. Your another, the second half of your question is, if a city repeatedly withstand disaster and successfully adopt, encourage greater development in high-risk areas, I think they do not go well hand in hand, because if the city is repeatedly withstanding big disasters and successfully adapting as well to the disasters, it will certainly not allow great development in the high-risk areas. I have shown a photo where a beautiful new building is built of a university, but it is flooded in the first year. That kind of decision will not be taken in a city which is withstanding disaster and which is successfully adapting uh, as well to the impacts of it. So I think uh, when the city experiences next catastrophe, if it has adopted well, it will never make a mistake of, going back in the high risk areas. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Professor. Dr. Bagus, do you have something to
Yeah.
add? Yeah.
This question actually remind us about the new, worrisome of the government, because now we are focused on disaster risk reduction, and then with this question become disaster risk creation, because many disaster risk reduction program fail because they create new risk for the community. This is actually the answer for the question. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you for the questions. Doctor, maybe Bapak Agus Trijoko. I think it's another questions from Bapak Agus. Not yet. I think that's another questions for Dr. Bagus from also from Mr. Agus Trijoko Trijoko. Yeah, this one. Could the greatest health burden of an urban disaster occur among patients who never reach the emergency department, Dr. Bagus? And how can emergency medicines and public health jointly collaborate to identify and protect this invisible casualty before delay mortality rises?
Okay,
So,
first question. The answer is yes. yes, they could, because during urban disaster, especially big earthquake, all the hospital, the health facilities is collapsed. So the area depends on the outside hospital, which not affected by the earthquake. Also, the transportation is collapsed. If we can have the first presentation by doctor from the Unhas, how the city collapsed during disaster, and then transportation collapse, and then burden to the patient cannot go to the hospital. Yes, this is the answer. So that's why the Ministry of Health now develop a big program for each local government to have emergency medical team, at least mobile EMT. So if certain area is collapsed, so EMT from outside the disaster area, they can come to the area and help the victim to get medical access. Yeah. The second question is, yeah, that's why we have a system, we call it disaster emergency command system. So they will activate command post. Under command post, there will be a command post for the health crisis. They have activation for health cluster and then activation for the health emergency operating center. And they will work closely between emergency medicine and public health emergency. So they will work closely, but of course there is a gap in the field. But this is a very good system in Indonesia, and actually we adopted from the ICS from US incident command system, and then hybrided with the cluster system from the UN. This is question.
okay, thank you, Dr. Bagus. Professor Ahias, do you have something to add in these questions?
I think Dr. Bagos has already answered this quite in detail, and he has expertise in that area. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Another questions from participants from Muhammad Fahtoni to all panelists, to all. How about the earthquake now in Flores right now? Recently, we have the earthquake in Flores, Ruteng Hospital was collapsed. Maybe from your experience, maybe you can answer what if the hospital was also in collapse or during disaster? Dr. Bagus first, maybe.
Yeah, Pak Fatoni, this is my colleagues. This is from Brawijaya University.
Oh,
Actually,
okay.
under the BPPD in Surabaya, we are working closely. Collapsing hospital in the disaster area is very big problem for the local community, especially in the Flores. This is island. It's very difficult to get access to the island. At least 1 week by boat if the weather is good, or they have to do it flight if available. So that's why the government developed EMT. If in the area in Manggarai, they have another what we call it kabupaten in the surrounding area, they can deploy EMT. And then the first most important is how to strengthen the health center, the puskesmas, because they the first responder to treat and to help the casualties. So I think the government is working like right now, and right now the government, the central government, sending all the ministry on the head of the BNPB to the area, so they can manage. At least the local government must activate the command post, because under command post, under the umbrella, they can provide and distribute all the resources to the needy person. Yeah, I think this.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Bagus. Professor Achilles, would you like to add maybe some experience during urban disaster, and then the hospital, the big hospital is also collapsed?
Well, yes, it is a tragedy. You know, I'm originally from India, and in 2001 there was a massive earthquake at the border of India and Pakistan. And because of that earthquake, not only a lot of buildings have collapsed, but also the district hospital, which is the biggest hospital, it also collapsed. And after that, of course, you know, a lot of international assistance poured in. And one of the priority they decided is that we must build a hospital which is built on the base isolation technique. It's an engineering technique. It means even in the strongest earthquake, the building will shake, but it will not collapse. It will not collapse like a pack of cards, because it is completely unacceptable that the hospital has collapsed. At the same time, we have to understand that hospital cannot function just by building. It requires people to work, basically, which means doctors, nurses, paramedics, allied health services, other people who work over there. And their safety is also important. So then I think, my thinking goes that not only we should make priority to make hospitals extremely resilient to the future risk, but also the healthcare support workers who provide the services over there, and they work day and night, especially when the disasters strike, and their safety and the places where they live, they should also be made safe, so that the functioning of the hospital, functioning of the emergency services, functioning of the various other services which works to support the hospitals are also not impacted, including the supply chains which are required to the hospitals in a big way during that time. I live in a city called Darwin. Darwin was impacted by a massive cyclone in 1974, known as Cyclone Tracy. And Darwin is very far from rest of Australia. It takes 4.5 hour flight for me to go to Melbourne or Sydney or Canberra, but it takes only 2 hours and 15 minutes to fly to Bali. So you can imagine I'm more close to Indonesia compared to rest of Australia. So because the supply chain can be disrupted in Darwin, the hospital has decided that they must have at least 1 month of the supplies, including bloods, including glucose, including all the hospital supply. At least 1 month must be here in case there is a massive flood or cyclone or fire or even war-like situation in other parts of Australia. Their supply chain should not be interrupted. This is a decision which was made, and this is something which I think health sector must be prepared, and hospital emergency preparedness plan should be given priority. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your experience also, Professor. So right now, maybe we still have some quiet time. So maybe all the participants can also have the live questions, probably. Please raise your hand. Is there any questions? Any more questions? Yes. Okay. From Mr. Muhammad Fathoni. Okay, please. Please, Pak Fathoni. Yes, you can start your questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. I would like to ask how about the resilience from campus. It's mean from Unjani or from Brawijaya. Any university like in the India have like a structure for resiliency campus. I mean, we have like some incident commander until cluster or sub-cluster. And the second question, how about management disaster? It's like for now in Flores. In Flores, in Nusa Tenggara Timur, have earthquake 7.7 skala Richter magnitude. How can we send the EMT or the rescuer, because some in for transportation have difficulty. Only the air or only the from the the ship like this. Yeah. Thank you very much, Dr.
Thank you.
Sylvia.
Thank you, Bapak Fatoni. So this is interesting questions as well. So the first questions is about the campus resilience, or maybe the academic infrastructure, whether also need to be resilient in disaster. That's the first question. And then secondly, about the recent disaster in Flores right now. How about the disaster response here right now? So maybe Dr. Bagus first.
Yeah, the first question about university or campus resilience. Right now, I don't see any university in Indonesia that they develop and build the university focus on disaster prevention, because it's already old building and the building code is not applied very well. Actually, should be disaster earthquake proof building in university that built in the earthquake area, but it's not happening in Indonesia. At least they have to have a simulation or exercise. They have a SOP dealing with how to prepare for the disaster. For example, university in Chimay or in Bandung or in Aceh, because the main hazard is earthquake. So at least they're aware of it. They have SOP how to prepare with the earthquake. So hopefully for the next university, they have to build a disaster-proof building and have the guideline and SOP for that. And for the earthquake in NTT, actually, I get a very limited information, but I'm sure that there are a very difficult healthcare access because the hospital is collapsed, and then the area is not easy to have access. So at least need 1, 2, or 3 days from the outside health workers and health uh, facilities to come to the area. We just pray for that. That's why we have to develop for the resilience, for the minimum requirement for the health services during disaster in that area. That's it from me.
Thank you, Dr. Bagus. Professor Achilles, do you have something to add in this question?
Yes, certainly. It's a very interesting question, thinking about the resilience of the academic campuses, etc. And why this is an interesting question, because we are coming from a developing country and we need to prioritize, because we don't have massive amount of resources to make everything earthquake resilient, for example, or disaster resilient. And we have to go step by step in prioritizing and stage wise and phase wise development. So let me talk about, let's say, in Simahi, you have a faculty of medicine. Wherever there is a faculty of medicine cannot be functional without the medical college need a medical hospital. They go side by side. They have to function parallelly. So if we are making sure that the hospital building is earthquake resilient, for example, or disaster resilient, yes, I think I would advise that the medical college should equally be medically resilient. I mean, sorry, disaster resilient. And in that hospital, sorry, in that college or the faculty of medicine building, there must be a floor where doctors and nurses and other support staff can take rest if they are unable to go home, so that they can work in shifts. And this is why it is very important to think about, parallelly creating these two infrastructure which work side by side, hand in hand, and one cannot exist and work without the other one. But can we do it for everything? Can we do it for every academic building in the university? Can we do it for the other departments as well? I would say ideally, yes. If I have a lot of money, I would do that. But if I have to prioritize, I'll prioritize on the faculty of medicine. Having said that, we don't want our next generation to be wiped out. So I gave an example of earthquake in India, where number of school buildings have collapsed, and some of the school buildings have collapsed when the children were inside that school building. And then it was also decided that while we may not have enough money to make every school building resilient from earthquake, but can we prepare the school disaster management plan? Now every school has a school disaster management plan, and they also conduct mock drills. Mock drills means the drill where they simulate the scenario so that how the children can go under the table, and when the earthquake is stopped, can they quickly evacuate to a safer ground. So I would suggest that for the other academic buildings in the campus, and otherwise also, be it administrative building, be it government building, be it a office building, be it a shopping mall, we must make sure that the mock drills are held, and every building, every campus should have an emergency management plan or disaster management plan prepared and tested. It should not be just a book which is somewhere in the office. It should be tested every 1 year, if not every 6 months. The second question is about the question in Flores. First of my heartfelt sympathies to the people who are suffering at the moment, and I would like to rely on the expert advice from Dr. Bagus, Professor Bagus on this, rather than me sharing more reflection, because it's still, there are a lot of challenges in that area. I think it is identified that there are transportation issues and only the air response is possible, etc., etc. And certainly in the immediately after the disaster, search and rescue is the priority. And I'm very sure Indonesian authorities and international agencies are working to rescue as many people as possible. And health services must be providing immense support. Once the person is rescued from the rubble, it is the health agencies who look after it, the hospital. So thank you, and hats off to the faculty of medicines and the doctors and nurses who work tirelessly to save lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Achilles. We also pray for NTT, who has a strong disaster back then, and hopefully they can also prepare for another disaster like we all discuss right now. So we know that the disaster or hazard actually cannot prevent, but we can still preventing a disaster. It means that resilience, that it's not building at the during disaster, but this is resilience built up to the educations, the collaborations, the research innovations, and we can all take the responsibility to disaster preparedness. So I think we are on the last time. Maybe before we close this beautiful event about disaster, I would like to invite Professor Achilles. Maybe you have a one or two sentences as a closing remarks in this discussions or this webinar. Please, Professor Achilles.
Thank you very much, Ibu Sylvia, and all the fantastic speakers and amazing, people who attended and also asked wonderful questions. We are living in a highly uncertain world at the moment, and the uncertainty is not only caused by the global warming, climate change, and the disasters, both traditional and non-traditional. It is also happening in the geopolitical domain. Right now, the news of war is so normalized. If you look at the war between the Ukraine and Russia, it is almost like 4 years. And we are not no more following that news. Okay, the another, in number of other regions, there is a war or there is a war-like situation. There is a conflict, there is a humanitarian crisis. And when I was growing up in India as a child in the last century, I was thinking that 21st century will be century of hope, positivity, wonderful life. People will not be suffering from war, but people will be having longevity, good health, good education, good infrastructure, potable water, safe sanitation, etc., etc. Unfortunately, a lot of those dreams are shattered. The reality, which was real between 1901 to 1950, is now, it seems, in the first part of 21st century, it is becoming real now. But at the same time, I have a lot of hope on a lot of young people who are attending this webinar. And previously, there was no technology, there was no scientific advancement. The world was still grappling with a lot of challenges. Thankfully, now information is available to us. AI is here with us. Innovation is the key, and innovation should come from the grassroots. We should not wait for the global leaders to do miracles. The miracle and the first initiative should start from us. And that is where I would like to sincerely urge and appeal to all the people, all the wonderful audience who is attending this seminar, to think out of the box, to think beyond their personal lives and think innovatively how we can create an environment which collectively leads to building resilience in our built environments. And every action we take helps the humanity. If I decide to use my own coffee mug rather than getting a disposable coffee mug, it is an individual decision. It does help, even very little, but it does help humanity at large in some ways. And so therefore, everyday decisions and everyday empowerment, everyday information sharing, our own awareness is very important. And when you are aware, make sure that you take the message to other person who may not have that level of awareness. But thank you very much once again, Faculty of Medicine Unjani, for inviting me to this wonderful seminar. And thank you everyone
Thank
for
you.
joining.
Very much welcome, Professor Achilles. Thank you for the brief closing remarks. And I would like to also invite Dr. Bagus to give us the closing remarks.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Sylvia. Oh yeah, the main cause of Indonesian national crisis is not war, but natural disaster. So to do that, the backbone of the disaster response is preparedness. So be prepared is very important. I just quote what the Benjamin Franklin said, that if we fail to prepare, we are preparing to fail. Thank you.
Thank you. If we fail to prepare, then we preparing to fail. Well, a great remarks, a great closing remarks.
Beautiful.
Do you agree, Professor?
Of course, 100%.
Yes, of course. Thank you again, Prof. Achilles, and also Dr. Bagus, and all our speakers that has remind us that this is our responsibility. This is not only one person or one institution's responsibility, but this is our responsibility. So we have to be prepared for the future generations and capable to lead the resilience in the health system or in the community. So thank you again. Today's seminar hopefully strengthening FK Unjani, medical faculty of Unjani, as the vision and missions of Unjani medical faculty is to build the impact of heading the resilience disasters right now. So hopefully, Unjani has a academic resilience as well, and hopefully we can collaborate with another institutions nationally or internationally. So thank you again, Professor Achilles and Dr. Bagus. We are in the end of our discussions, and this
Thank you,
webinar.
Professor Achilles. Thank you, Dr. Sylvia. Have a good
Thank
time.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And
Terima
right
kasih,
now,
everybody.
terima kasih, Professor. And we are now heading to our MC again. This is our students, Professor Achilles.
Beautiful. Oh,
Okay. Okay, back to Raffi. Okay, back to Anissa and Raffi. Thank you for this opportunity. Back to you. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Once again, thank you to our moderator and all of our speakers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. We have now come to the certificate presentation session.
As an expression of our sincere gratitude and appreciation, we would like to present certificate of appreciation to our distinguished speakers for their valuable contribution, expertise, and insights shared throughout today's public seminar.
First, we respectfully acknowledge Dr. Sylvia Mustikasari, Master of Medical Education FFRI, and present her with a certificate of appreciation. Thank you very much, Dr. Sylvia Mustikasari, for your valuable contribution to today's public seminar. We kindly invite Dr. Sylvia to remain on camera. We proceed with the official virtual documentation. On the count of three, let's take a peek. 1, 2, 3. And once again, 1, 2, 3. Thank you very much, Doctor.
Thank you, Doctor. We shall now present a certificate of appreciation to Mr. Berton Suar Pelita Panjaitan, Bachelor of Public Health, Master of Health Management, PhD. Thank you very much, Mr. Berton, for your valuable contribution and insight shared with us today.
Next, we respectfully present a certificate of appreciation to Dr. Engineer Miss Wartumpu, Bachelor of Engineering, Master of Engineering. Thank you very much, Dr. Miss Wartumpu, for sharing your valuable knowledge and expertise with us today.
We shall now present a certificate of appreciation to Associate Professor Achilles Surjan. Thank you very much, Associate Professor Achilles Surjan, for your valuable contribution and insightful presentation. May we kindly ask Professor Achilles to remain on camera for the official virtual documentation. Professor, kindly look toward the camera on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Once again, 1, 2, 3. Thank you very much, Professor.
And finally, we respectfully present a certificate of appreciation to Dr. Bagus Cahyono, Master of Public Health. Thank you very much, Dr. Bagus Cahyono, for your valuable contribution and expertise shared with us today. May we kindly ask Dr. Bagus to remain on camera as we proceed with the official virtual documentation. On the count on 3, 1, 2, 3. And once again, 1, 2, 3. Thank you very much, Dr. Bagus.
Once again, thank you very much, Dr. Sylvia Mustikasari, Master of Medical Education, FFRI. We sincerely appreciate your valuable contribution to today's public seminar.
We also like to extend our sincere gratitude and appreciation to all of our distinguished speaker, Mr. Berton Suarpelita Panjaitan, Bachelor of Public Health, Master of Health Management PhD, who will deliver a keynote speech entitled Urban Disaster, Dr. Engineer Miswar Tumpu, Bachelor of Engineering, Master of Engineering, for the presentation entitled Anatomy of an Urban Crisis, Defining Modern Disaster and Their Health Impact. Next, Associate Professor Achilles Surjan for the presentation entitled From Hazard to Resilience, Strengthening Urban Preparedness for Nature Fury. And the last, Dr. Bagus Cahyono, Master of Public Health, for the presentation entitled Beyond in the Golden Hour, Harmonizing Emergency Medicine and Public Health in Urban Disaster.
We sincerely thank all of our speakers for sharing their expertise and valuable insights, as well as all participants for your enthusiasm and active participation throughout the event.
Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the organizing committee, we would like to express our sincere gratitude to all of our distinguished speaker, moderator, honored guests, and participants for your valuable presence and active participation. We hope today's discussion have provided meaningful insight and inspired greater collaboration in strengthening urban disaster preparedness and resilience.
Thank you for taking the time to join us. We wish you safe travels, good health, and every success in your future endeavors.
And we would like to invite all distinguished speakers, honorable guests, community members, and participants to join us for the official virtual group photo session.
We kindly invite everyone to turn on their cameras, if possible, and remain in the Zoom meeting. Please follow the instruction from the committee as we arrange to participants for documentation.
Once again, we kindly invite everyone to turn on their camera. Ladies and gentlemen, we shall now proceed with our first documentation slide. So, the first slide in count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, the next slide is second slide. 1, 2, 3. Okay, next slide.
On the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. For the fourth slide, on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3.
Okay, thank you very much for the participation. We are now ready for our final photograph. So, for distinguished speakers, honorable guests, community members, and all participants, this is to conclude our official virtual group photo session. We sincerely appreciate your participation. And now, to conclude today's seminar on an exciting note, we shall proceed to one of the most anticipated moments of the event, is the door prize session.
But that's not all. We have some exciting rewards prepared for our participants.
We will be giving special prize to 3 with the best question throughout today's session.
In addition, 3 lucky participants will also be selected at random to receive special prizes.
So, stay with us until the very end of the event. Who knows, you may be one of our lucky winners today. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we shall now proceed with our first category, is the Best Question Awards.
3 participants have been selected for their outstanding question during today's session.
And the winner is Faraya, Dr. Agus Trijoko, and Mr. Muhammad Fahtoni. Congratulations to all of three who got best three question award. We sincerely appreciate your enthusiasm and active participation throughout today's public seminar. Next, we shall now proceed to our next category, is the random door prize.
3 lucky participants have been randomly selected to receive our special prizes.
And now, let us find out who are the lucky winner are. So, our first winner is Mrs. Dewi Nurlaini. Congratulations for our first lucky winner.
Congratulations, Miss Dewi Nurlaini.
Next, we will search for our second winner. Our second lucky winner is Rafli Aulia Raharja. Mr. Rafli Aulia Raharja, congratulations
Congratulations to Mr. Rafli Aulia Raharja.
for our lucky second winner.
Yes, and for the last.
And for our third and final lucky winner is congratulations to Miss Adelia Mutia Azahra. Congratulations to all three of our lucky winner. But we need to make sure the three of lucky winners is still in the Zoom. Because if the three lucky winner is not in the Zoom, we need to spin wheel again. So for the all winners, please to raise hand for the best question award and the random door prize winners to turn on the camera and
kindly for raise hand in the
Yes.
Zoom meeting.
once again, we would like to remind to our winner, first maybe from the lucky one. The first is Mrs. Dewi Nurlaini. The second one is Mr. Rafli Aulia Raharja. And the third one is Mrs. Adelia Mutia Azahra. Please turn on your camera and raise your hand. And for the question winner, we got three people here. And for the three people, the best question award is for Mrs. Faraya, Mr. Agus Trijoko, and Mr. Muhammad Fahloni. Please kindly to raise hand. Maybe we are waiting another winners. We would like to hear our participant feels about how winning the lucky prize. Maybe roughly can share your talk about this seminar and talk your feeling about winner the lucky door prize. Okay, shall we continue to our agenda? But we say congratulations to our three best question winner and our three randomly selected winner. Let's give all our winner a big round of applause. And thank you very much from our sponsor, PT Kanoman Putra Usaha Mandiri, that provide this door prize.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have now reached the end of the public seminar International Jamboree, Faculty of Medicine, General Ahmad Yani University.
Throughout this event, we have shared knowledge, exchanged perspective, and strengthening our understanding of urban disaster, emergency medicine, preparedness, and resilience.
May the knowledge and connection we have gained today inspire us to become better prepared, more resilient, and more collaborative in facing future challenges.
On behalf of the organizing committee, we would like to express our deepest gratitude to all distinguished guests, speaker, moderator, participants, and everyone who has contributed to the success of this event.
Your presence and participation have made this International Jamboree a truly meaningful and memorable experience.
We hope to see you again in future event and future collaboration. This concludes the public seminar International Jamboree, Faculty of Medicine, General Ahmad Yani University 2026.
Today, public seminar may be coming to an end, but our journey in the International Jamboree 2026 continues. As mentioned earlier, this seminar marks the beginning of our series of events leading up to the main activities on 24 and 25 August 2026.
We sincerely hope that the knowledge, perspective, and meaningful discussion shared today will serve as a valuable foundation as we continue this journey together.
We look forward to welcoming you again to the upcoming event of the International Jamboree 2026, where we'll continue to learn, collaborate, exchange ideas, and strengthen connection with one another.
Once again, thank you for being part of today's public seminar and for taking the first step of this remarkable journey with us.
This concludes the public seminar of the International Jamboree 2026, Faculty of Medicine, Universitas Jenderal Ahmad Yani.
And we look forward to seeing you again on 24 and 25 August 2026. And thank you very much and have a pleasant day. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. It's very impressive. Thank you.
Thank you. Hadir, please.